We won our sectional championship my junior year. I was even though we didn't have state playoffs, I was all state running back. And so I got recruited. Like I said, I was getting recruited pretty heavily as you could get recruited back then.
Right.
And Syracuse University, which was like right down the street, there's that old adage, and I know you've heard it, and anyone that follows college football, in the old days, if you were a school and you were recruited, you wanted to put a fence around your area. And some schools will say 300 miles, 500 miles. But if there was a good recruit in that area, man, you got him. You did not lose him. And so Syracuse, the late, great Dick McPherson was the head coach there. And Syracuse was a national power in the early 90s in football and basketball. And so they really wanted me. So they essentially, my junior year, said, yep, we want you. I was like top of their list. And of course, this is before, now they're offering kids in like ninth grade. It's crazy, but this was like legit. So Syracuse really wanted me. Boston College recruited me hard. I liked Boston College, again, Catholic school. I liked, but Syracuse was like, you're not going to BC. They're in our conference. So they were like, that's not happening. Penn State recruited me. So I had a pretty good recruiting experience with Penn State. And then the outlier that came out of nowhere was Wisconsin.
Okay.
And so this has a Notre Dame tie in it too. So Barry Alvarez.
Yeah, I know Barry.
Was the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame.
Okay.
When he took the head coaching job at Wisconsin.
Oh, did not know that. Okay.
Yeah. So I had a great friend of mine. He's since passed away. His name was Burt Richardson. Burt was a year ahead of me. And Burt was just a kick-ass middle linebacker. Okay. And Iowa recruited him. So when I recruited him, obviously I was a year under. They recruited me as well. Yep. And then what happened was the coach that recruited Burt to Iowa and me to Iowa went to Wisconsin when Barry Alvarez got the job. So he just kept me recruited with Wisconsin. And now the knee injury happens. And then right before the knee injury, what I'm about to tell you, and it'll hit home when I tell you this. This was a very formative thing for me as, a 17, 18-year-old kid. Wisconsin essentially, in the recruiting battle, offered me a full scholarship as a junior in high school, which is pretty unheard of in 1989, 90. They just didn't do it. They said, we want you, we're going to offer you. And then they said, and I'll never forget the recruit, the assistant coach that was at Iowa that went to Wisconsin that I talked to. His name was Bernie Wyatt. It's like his name's ingrained in my head. And I remember he said to me after my junior year, just don't get hurt. And, you don't really think – yeah, right? You don't really think about it. And then sure enough, I blew my knee out. And then fast forward, the conversation after that, and this conversation is what I still talk about when I do talks, do podcasts, when people want the long form story. The analogy he said to me, he goes, here's the deal. He said, we wanted you. Okay. You were our number one back. You got hurt. He goes, it's like you go to a car dealership to buy a new car. You go to the dealership, it's a bunch of cars there, and you pick out the car you want, right? And you tell the dealership, I'll be back. This is the car I want. Well, you come back to pick up that car, and there's a dent in it. Doesn't matter how the dent got in there. You're not going to take that car. You're going to take the next model as close to that one you wanted that the dealership has. That's recruiting. And he said, I was a car with a dent in it. So I lost my scholarship offer. They went to the next running back on the list. And so at 17, 18 years old, that's like eye-opening. Like, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because even back then, even though we didn't get paid like they do today, it's still a business. For us, the scholarship was a big deal.
Absolutely.
Back then, you're still talking $250,000, the food, everything. I mean, that's still a really big deal, which I think people kind of lose sight today with NIL and revenue share. I mean, a scholarship is still a big deal. Listen, I got my oldest daughter's graduating this week from Lynn University in South Florida, played Division II soccer. She was on a half scholarship, but that's a private school. It's like $60,000 a year. So me and my wife still got her through. And when I pay those, she actually, right before this podcast, she said, Dad, we still owe $2,700. I'm like, all right, we got it. So when I look back at my scholarship days, it was a big deal. So I wish, and I know I diverged a little bit. I wish people gave more of a big deal to the scholarship today. But with that said, so I lost all my offers, even Syracuse, who recruited me heavily, came to my school and basically said, yeah, if it was a scope, if it was a meniscus, we'd still offer you. But I had what was called an unhappy triad. So I tore my ACL, my MCL, and my tendon was torn too.
Oh.
So all the scholarships are gone. So now, get to your question with UMass. UMass never recruited me. UMass back then was 1AA, a very good 1AA team. But they just never recruited me. So I didn't know what I was going to do, Preston. So my high school coach at the time, Nick Tita, reached out to Fork Union Military Academy, which is still going today.
Yep.
Matter of fact, they talked to my coach and they said, hey, because, got to remember, I got hurt late, right? I get hurt in the fall. I lose all those scholarship offers. And then the thing was, like, I didn't know if my knee was going to be ready to play that next fall. And back then, they really wanted you to rest and rehab. They didn't want you to play 6 months, 8 months later like they do today. Okay. And I knew, okay, if I go to Fork Union Military Academy, there's no red shirt. I got to play. Right. And I know the coach at Fork Union said, hey, our roster's filled. Well, we sent them a VHS tape. That's what we had back then. And they called back and they looked at my VHS tape and they looked at, who was recruiting me. And they said, okay, we'll take him. He's got a roster spot. So I was going to go to Fork Union Military Academy. Turns out there was another running back on that roster that year, same age as me, a guy by the name of Eddie George. You might have heard of him. Won the Heisman.
I heard of him.
Played at Ohio State. He's now the head coach at Bowling Green. So that's what I was going to do. I was going to go Fork Union Military Academy. I made my mind up. I said, all right, I'm going to suck it up. I'm just got to get ready. I got to play. University of Massachusetts, which I said didn't recruit me, happened to be in Rochester. And it's crazy how things happen. And I, people watching and listening, I don't know if you're spiritual, you believe in God or whatever it is, but I live my life where I think things happen for a reason. And I think there's a divine plan in our lives. I just do. And Preston, it was probably 2 weeks before letter of intent, which back then it's always it still is the first Wednesday in February. Right? Yeah. Yep. It's still here today, but now there's a million other early signs. Yep. It's nuts. But that was a big deal to us back then. That was the one day.
Sure was.
2 weeks before letter of intent, and UMass was in Rochester looking at another running back. Okay. The kid ended up signing with UConn. Okay. That coach said, hey, yeah, he's going to sign with UConn, but he goes, you know what? There's a kid across town in Ingoglia, and this is what, I don't know if you know about him, but this is what happened to him. And so that UMass assistant coach got in his car and drove to my high school. No calls, no nothing. And I met with him, and he said, hey, I heard your story. I gave him, he knew nothing about me. I gave him a VHS tape. He must have, drove back to Massachusetts that night, but he was in a hotel. He must have watched the tape that night. Called his head coach, which was a guy by the name of Jim Reed, called me back that night and goes, hey, we just watched I watched your tape. We have one official visit left. And I hadn't been on any official visits because I blew, everyone's like, no, we're done.
Yeah.
We have one official visit left. Can you come up this weekend? I was like, yeah, why not? Right. I got nothing else going on. Well, I take one official visit to UMass. Now, you'll love this part of it, too.
Okay.
I get there on a Friday. I go up. My dad and my older brother come with me. And, you've been on official visits. So those that don't know, they'll give the player a host. So I was with a host for the weekend. And my dad and brother kind of did their thing. And they met with some coaches and stuff. But Jim Reed was the head coach. And I met him in his office on Friday. So here's the connection now. For those that don't know. The late, great Dick McPherson, who was at Syracuse, who wanted me. And, oh, by the way, that very next year, he became the New England Patriots head coach. He had a great career in the NFL. He used to coach at UMass in, like, the 70s. So Jim Reed is now the head coach at UMass. was a
Okay.
protege, was an assistant under Dick. So he loved Dick McPherson. So
Right. That's what it sounds like. Yep.
So I sit in the office on Friday of this official visit, and I meet Coach Reed for the first time. And he says to me, listen, we heard your story. We know what happened to you. You got hurt. And he goes, we don't have any scholarships, but we wanted to bring you in for a visit. Your story was intriguing. What's happening? So enjoy the official visit, but I just want to let you know, we don't have any scholarships, but I wanted to bring you up anyway. So, I shake his hand, I'm kind of like, whatever. Like at this point, like life has thrown all its crap at me. You know what I mean? I lost all these offers. I had my knee surgery. It was successful, but I'm recovering. I'm only, I had the surgery in November of 90, and now we're only a few months later. I'm in the rehab stage. So, but I said, yeah, I'm going to go to this official visit and I'm going to have a good time. So what UMass does is I get a host and we go to a basketball game and, we have a good time. We go to eat and tour the facilities. And then on Sunday, before the visit ends, they would bring all the recruits. And there was probably maybe 10 or 12 of us up on this trip. They'd bring us this big restaurant where you have this big breakfast buffet. And you're sitting there at if your family's with you, and if not, you're alone. There might be an assistant coach with you. And the head coach would just go table to table and talk about the visit and whatever. And Coach Reed comes and he sits at my table. And he said, hey, I just want to let you know, when you left my office Friday night, I called Coach McPherson and talked to him about you on the phone for 2 hours.
That's awesome.
He goes, I want to offer you a full scholarship. So 2 days late, 2 days earlier, he's like, we don't have any. He goes, Coach McPherson told him he was one of our number one guys. We were recruiting him. We were giving him a scholarship. If he comes back to half the player he was, it'll be worth it for you to give him a full ride. So he goes, we're giving you a full ride. He goes, and this is what we're going to do. You're going to come in next year. You're going to redshirt. You're not even going to think about playing. You're just going to keep rehabbing. And we'll move forward. And one offer, that's all I had. It only takes one. And that's how I got to UMass.